There's people out there who can get real pedantic when it comes to the names of genres. If I say slasher movie, you immediately think of movies like Halloween or maybe Nightmare on Elm Street. People in these movies die in a variety of ways, not just from getting slashed, but slasher is still a perfectly adequate name for the genre. For the most part, my philosophy is that if I can say the name of the genre and you immediately get what I mean without me having to explain myself further, that's good enough. There are, however, a few exceptions to that rule, and some genre names that I just cannot get behind, specifically within the world of video games, so I figured I'd talk about that with you guys today. This isn't a review of any singular game, in case this wasn't clear, this is just a general opinion piece. Be warned also that this is a dangerously nerdy video, okay? I'll be talking about minor minutiae that most people could not care less about. If you're not bothered by that, then let's dive in. One genre name that's controversial for some people, but I don't actually mind all that much, is Metroidvania. The reason for the controversy is that some people will argue that the Metroid series alone led to the formation of the genre, and Castlevania games, such as Symphony of the Night, had very little impact. I can debunk that argument by simply pointing out the metric crapload of games that come out every year who cite Symphony of the Night as a direct inspiration, and also the fact that Simon's Quest, arguably one of the earliest examples of the Metroidvania genre, came out just shortly after the original Metroid, and the Castlevania developers cited The Maze of Gallius, a Famicom game also made by Konami, as an inspiration. It doesn't strike me as the Castlevania devs ripping off Metroid. It strikes me as two different teams coincidentally arriving at very similar conclusions as to what their games should be like. I honestly don't see the argument from an objective, historical point of view. If you just like Metroid and think Castlevania sucks, I guess that's your opinion to have, but I say both franchises have had an equal amount of impact in the genre. That said, I still think a change in the name might be cool. Some people have begun using the term search action to describe these sorts of games, and while I do find the term a bit boring, it's fine enough and would get rid of the whole discussion surrounding the Metroidvania name. Moving on, now I'm gonna list off some games, okay? Devil May Cry 3, Bayonetta, God Hand, Ninja Gaiden Black. What genre would you say these games belong to? A lot of people would say that they're hack and slash games, which seems like a decent enough answer at first, but then you realize that games like Diablo, Grim Dawn, and Torchlight also get called hack and slash games. And I'm sorry, but these two types of games play nothing like each other. If both of them belong to the same genre, then the genre is vague enough to the point of being meaningless. Only one of these can truly call itself a hack and slash, and going from, again, a historical perspective, I think I'll have to give the name to Diablo, Grim Dawn, and Torchlight. You see, the term hack and slash wasn't even coined to describe video games. It was used to describe tabletop RPG campaigns with a heavy emphasis on combat. With that in mind, the term hack and slash, to me, sounds more appropriate to describe action RPGs, such as Diablo. Games like DMC and Ninja Gaiden just don't have RPG mechanics, unless you're really stretching the definition of the term. So, okay, they're not hack and slash games. So what are they? There's all sorts of names out there for this genre, such as character action or spectacle fighter, but I don't think either name is that great. I can't even tell you what the term character action even means. It's an action game where you play a character? How much character does the protagonist need to have in order for the game to qualify as a character action game? How much spectacle does the game need to have to qualify as a spectacle fighter? Besides, people will sometimes get really weird with this and say a third-person shooter like Vanquish is a character action game, despite the fact that it plays totally different from other entries in the genre. To me, that's like saying Star Wars is a Western. Yes, there's some similar elements, but it doesn't make it part of the genre. As a response to all this nonsense, I've seen people say that we should just do away with the fancy names entirely. Just call these games action games and leave it at that. But I find that to be a very generic term, to the point that it would become confusing. If somebody says, "Oh, I like action games," I don't know that most people would immediately think of Devil May Cry and Bayonetta. They may very well think of games like Call of Duty or Halo. Alright, smartass, you might be saying. So what would you call these games? Well, for me, the answer is simple. 3D beat-em-ups. These games have more in common design-wise with classic arcade-era beat-em-ups than they do with any other type of game. There's an emphasis on melee combat with combos, high difficulty, a scoring system that measures your performance, secrets strewn throughout, and just the general attitude it elicits from the player, that simply getting through the game isn't enough. You have to replay it, master it, and only then can you say you've beaten it. Games like Streets of Rage, Capcom's Dungeons & Dragons games, and Scott Pilgrim would be 2D beat-em-ups, and games like Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Ninja Gaiden Black, and God Hand would be 3D beat-em-ups. The only argument I've seen against that name is people saying, well, it doesn't count because you don't exclusively beat people up, you also use swords, guns, and all sorts of weapons. But I'm sorry, to me that's on the level of saying, well, you shouldn't call slasher movies slashers because people don't die only from getting slashed. I'm sorry, but that's just pedantic, okay? 3D beat-em-ups is the name I use in normal conversations, and people usually have an idea of what I mean. Okay, that's 2 down, 1 more to go. And this final one might be the most controversial, I don't know. I'm gonna talk about immersive sims and how they don't exist. They just don't. First off, the name is terrible. Saying immersive sim is kinda like saying scary horror or funny comedy. Like, yeah, I would expect a sim to be immersive. But oh, let's not forget that supposed immersive sims like Deus Ex, Thief, and System Shock have absolutely nothing to do with simulation games like Euro Truck Simulator or Farming Simulator, which are also called Sims. In short, immersive sim and sim are 2 completely different genres. Yeah, that's not confusing at all. Also, I just don't see enough of a defined structure to really call this a genre. People have a hard time even defining these games, but from what I gather, the main aspects that would constitute an immersive sim would be a first-person perspective and a general design philosophy of giving players multiple different ways of handling a solution. About the first-person perspective, why? You mean to tell me that Deus Ex, as it is an immersive sim, but if they had made the exact same game but in third person, suddenly the entire genre would change? Why? Secondly, when people talk about, oh, immersive sims are about giving the player freedom to figure out how they want to handle the mission, that's a very vague descriptor. The main objective behind most Thief missions is to steal something. The game is just giving you different tools to achieve that. If that's enough to constitute an immersive sim, then Devil May Cry is an immersive sim. Most games are, because I can choose different tools, aka different weapons, to achieve the same objective, aka looking stylish. If it's not an immersive sim, why not? Because it's in third person? Or does it not meet some arbitrary level of player freedom required to be considered an immersive sim? And besides all of that, there's already a genre where the main concern of the game is, or at least it should be, to allow the player the freedom to approach a situation through a variety of different paths, building their own playstyle and expressing themselves in the process. Wanna know what that genre is? 3 words. Role-playing game. Deus Ex and its sequels are RPGs. Ultima Underworld and its sequel is an RPG. So is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. The immersive sims that can't be considered RPGs, such as Thief or Dishonored, can be comfortably described with other names, such as first-person shooters, stealth games, so on and so forth. And just to repeat myself, I'm not bashing the games, not in the slightest. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is at least in the top 10 best games ever. Thief is so good I played it to completion in this very channel, and Deus Ex is arguably the best game ever made, full stop. I love the games. I love the design mentality of giving the player freedom. I just don't love the name Immersive Sim. It's a confusing marketing buzzword that fails to even market itself to people because they just don't know what the hell you're talking about. In short, Immersive Sims
is totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication.
So yeah, that's all I had for today. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the video. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and until next time.